As a result of the review, and then an op-ed piece criticizing the critic, more artists came. They're like, oh my God, something's going on here, right? And after the 4 pounds of cheese, 2 gallons of red wine, I suggested that we start meeting at my empty house. The former wife is gone. We've all been through that. If you haven't, you will. And we decided to start meeting, and we wrote a manifesto, right? If you read the manifesto, it trashes everything known to existence in the art world. All art institutions, cultural institutions of every kind, grant makers and everybody else. Saying that they're elitist. Fundamentally, the belief was that it really supported Western ideals in art, and it sort of ignored every other cultural phenomenon that's existed in the world. And that it was a select group of people determining who got to play and who didn't get to play. Much like we're talking about with people who want to move back into the city. Isn't that the question? Who gets to play and who gets to stay? Isn't that the question that we're confronting with us? So, you can read this. What's the section I want to highlight beside what's highlighted? Okay, that kind of tells the story. All right, click. And I'm showing you these series of documents because it really is the evolution of my thinking, the evolution of the thought, and what led to the creation of AS220. This is the mission of AS220. Okay? And if you look at those documents from the original review to the op-ed piece to the manifesto, you begin to see all of that sort of summarized in this. And in spite of the yellow, I want to call your attention to our facilities and services are made available to all artists who need a place to exhibit, perform, or create their original artwork, especially those who cannot obtain space to exhibit or perform from traditional sources because of financial or other limitations. So we could have named all the isms, right? Racism, sexism, ageism, all of them. But we figured we'd probably invent a few more as we go. So we just kept it fairly generic, right? But that's what we're talking about. And a lot of that translates to opportunity, doesn't it? Who gets opportunity and who doesn't, right? Click. My younger brother, actually that's me. And this was the first space that we had. We were fooling with a bunch of names originally before we came up with AS220, the Beatnik League, the Muse Union. I remember the accountant that was helping us when we eventually went for a 501c3, which I knew nothing about, by the way. I come from working class parents, my father was an immigrant. I had no exposure in my life or much opportunity early on in my life. So I didn't know what a 501c3, we'll even discuss that a little bit. Click. But we eventually named it AS220, Alternative Space, Art Space 220 with Boston Street. And it was also a reference to PS1 and PS122 in Manhattan, which were public schools that artists had converted into what became very, very important space in terms of the cultural universe of the United States. We started in the 3rd floor of the Performing Arts Center that had just reopened. It was saved from the wrecking ball by a former mayor who spent 5 years in a gated community called the Federal Penitentiary, who was a good friend of mine and really helped AS220 happen. And I knew there was empty space there, and I had partied with one of the directors, and I said, I have this idea. I painted the picture of a kind of, I guess kind of a James Taylor singer-songwriter coffee house. I failed to mention that we were going to create an unjuried, uncensored space welcome to everybody. Heavy metal bands, all-night raves, hip-hop, this is 1985, still hadn't got out into the provinces yet. We were still brewing in the Bronx, right? But that eventually became a large part of who we are to this day. Well, after a couple of months, the Brown and RISD brat students, this is being filmed, decided they were going to do an event at AS220. It was called The Final Decision. And they were burning wormwood and incense, and they had strobe lights, and they had bands called Shit House and Sleep Chamber with chainsaws and banging things on the floor, and the place was absolutely mobbed. They had roadkill on crucifixes in the room, and I'm standing in the back of the room and says, oh shit, is this what I mean? Can I really defend this? It was an amazing evening. Some of those people have gone on to fame. I don't know if you know John Spencer, the Blues Explosion, and a few of these different seminal bands that came out of that night went on to make a name for themselves. But that night, the Performing Arts Center, which does the touring Broadway stuff, right, was having a board of directors meeting. Downtown Providence, there was no noise, there were no cars, you could park anywhere you wanted, and our building was pulsating. And these people came out and they were certain there was a satanic ritual happening in their building. They weren't 100% wrong. And we got a wonderful letter from them saying how important our work was and that we had to find someplace else to do it. That someplace else was around the corner to an abandoned, boarded up building that had no heat, no electricity or anything. I found the landlord, I said I'd give him $500 a month, let me in the building, don't come collect the rent, because we were going to live there. Heating the place with kerosene heaters, we re-ran the water without any inspectors or anything, by the way, right? Can't do this today at Downtown Providence. Every square foot is spoken for. Talk about property values, right? In fact, we were there for a few months, and someone decided they wanted to invest now, and they were going to open a club downstairs. They had to do it legal, and inspectors, liquor license, all that. And James came up to me and he said, Bert, you got 40 feet of PVC pipe running in the basement, plastic pipe, which you're not supposed to run as a water feed. And the plumbing inspector's coming, he's going to see you, he's going to discover you, and then I'm going to be in trouble, we're all going to be in trouble. I said, James, relax. We went upstairs, we mixed some paint to look like copper, we painted the entire paint to look copper, we added dust all along the pipe, the plumbing inspector never saw the pipe. Click. Click. So, we're living there, we're making stuff happen. There came a point where the city started reading reviews in the paper of shows that were happening here. People like Green Day, or Lee Conant's played there, who played in the Bertha Cool album, Miles Davis, or Viola Davis's last performance in Rhode Island before she went on to Juilliard, right? So people are reading reviews and the city's going, who are these people? They don't have an entertainment license, there's been no inspectors there, but the city was pretty desperate. So blink, blink, we moved everybody out, temporarily made their studios look like work studios because we would have never been able to meet code for live. And the city knew what was going on, put up a few exit signs, they let us back in the building, we started living there, we started making it happen again. Okay? But after a number of years, this is getting tired. Alright? And we're talking about ownership, we're talking about equity. Equity is ownership. Let's not bullshit ourselves. Now, ownership isn't easy. Right? People have to know what they're getting into and what the responsibility that they're assuming in the process. You know? But let's not bullshit ourselves about what we mean by equity. You have a very different place at the table when you own a little piece of this globe. Okay? So after a number of years, we realized we had to do something, so I stood on stages like this. Every night we had a performance in our venue, and we had visual art shows and performances and anything and everything you can imagine. And I said, AST20 is going to own its own building. I had no idea what I was talking about. Completely unbankable. We were those weirdos down there, right? That's what people kind of reference us that way, right? And I kept talking. People started to introduce me to people. I started learning the language, right, of development, of the banking community, Community Reinvestment Act. I began to learn some of these things, some of these tools that you can use and trigger that coded language, right, that private developers are well aware of, right, and CDCs are aware of, and that kind of thing. And we started, they showed us a building that was completely a wreck, right? That building, the entire block on that street was prostitution, drug trade. The building was completely a mess. It had a bunch of pornography stores in it and all that. And the city said, if you can do something with this, we have some leverage, there was taxes, we can make something happen for you. Right? And we said, look perfect. Click. It was a click again. So it was a double-loaded corridor. It had been small mercantiles, so small businesses in its history. The physical building, the architecture spoke to us as artists, which we are entrepreneurial, we are small businesses in our own right. It made a lot of sense to us. They said, this is never going to happen, but we can't help you here, okay? So that's this building, and this is what it looked like at that time, right? That's a 23,000 square foot building. These are 3 buildings that we own today. That picture before that was volunteers. When we were doing this building, we click back to that picture. When we do it, and then forward again. So we agreed to keep costs down. It was during a recession, Providence got hit very hard. We agreed that we would do a lot of sweat equity. We took over 200 tons of debris out of that building without contractors, with volunteers. Okay? Now, there's something about this in terms of organizing community and volunteers around making stuff happen, isn't it? in terms of being able to bring people together and be able to create a precedent for the community to be empowered in a way to make things happen on its own, right? Click. These are what these buildings look like now. They're 100% occupied. We're going to go through what these programs are. And we're going to get into some theory at the end of this, by the way. So if we can keep you awoke from this till the end, there may be something meaty here. We'll see. This represents about, at this point, about $27 million of investment that we assembled in the city. And there are multiples of that that happen around us. But what's the difference between us and the typical private developer and the impact that the private developer can have on the existing community, right? I see a lot of beautiful things, and I see 2-3-story architecture all along Penn Street. I see a lot of cool little arts organizations that could easily be pushed aside or stepped on in the process when they're beginning to actually add value in this community in many ways, connecting with young kids, doing all kinds of stuff, right? How do we preserve and protect those people and make sure they're part of the mix as we continue to go forward? Because, by the way, these people that are moving into the city and want all this sexiness of the urban environment, how sexy is it if we're not here? Sorry, we're the sex appeal. Let's be real, right? Click. So what's the mix in these buildings? So our buildings are mixed use, mixed income development. That's how we gotta do it. Market rate apartments with affordable housing. Local businesses. So these are our commercial tenants. We have a formula. We have public uses and commercial tenants on the first floor. We have sorta 9 to 5 uses on the second floor, and then our residents are on the third and the fourth floor. So there's a little bit of insulation to the street. At the same time, we're supporting, we don't do chains. Viva Mexico, as far as I believe, and what I understand, is that Providence demographics have changed dramatically. So we're at about 50% Latino, 70% of our public school population is Latino. And this is the first locally owned Latino business in the downtown. And we did it intentionally, okay? We worked with him. You talk about how to support. He had never sold liquor before. He had a small restaurant somewhere else. We brought our liquor people in and our vendors and everybody to help him set up his bar. We helped him with his graphics and his image. When he first opened up, when Jose first opened up, he didn't have a lunch menu. Jose, you can't compete in the downtown market if you don't have a lunch menu. Let us help you figure out a lunch menu. How can you support? Right? That's a question. We got answers. The Stable was considered to be a kind of a dark, mysterious gay bar where people assumed there was a lot of craziness going on. All the windows were blocked up. We met with the owners. We said, we want to keep you in the mix, but no more black windows. We've got to celebrate our diversity. And besides, in terms of design and preservation and everything, we couldn't do that. You with us? You want to upgrade? You want to make it happen? I remember about 2 years after we developed that building, he came to me and said, I've quadrupled my business. And you know he's lying to me. Right? If he said he quadrupled it, he probably did better than that, right? And it's unbelievable. It's a destination. People come down from Boston, spend a weekend, and hang out at this bar. It's Roberto the Barber, kind of sports type bar. Click, Clock the Locksmith. So programs at ASU 20. Next. Our galleries. We have 4 or 5 gallery spaces, still on jury and uncensored. Anybody from the state of Rhode Island who wants to perform or exhibit their work, they get an opportunity to do it. And in the old days, and let me tell you a little bit, when we first opened up, I said on jury and uncensored, the artists of Providence and in Rhode Island at that time were like, well, if anybody can be there, what's the big deal? They wanted to be in the big club. They wanted to be in the gallery. They wanted to be picked and selected because they had bought into this kind of elitist idea. They had forgotten about the intrinsic value of artists and artistic practice. They bought into this. Until a few artists started coming, and I remember one specifically, the group was named Example of None. They made a name for themselves in Chicago a little bit. And it was a young woman who had gotten a degree in performance, and she had a new boyfriend who played rock and roll guitar, and they were doing wacky stuff with her and his guitar. And they said, none of the clubs and none of the guys will let us do it. Can we do it here? And after I picked them up off the floor from knocking them down, I said, of course. Right? And what happened is we started to change the consciousness of the community because there was a place where anything could happen, and we said yes over and over again. When they went into their studios, when they went into their rehearsal spaces, rather than thinking about what will get them into this club, and creating their set that way, or creating their out of the way to match the aesthetic of a particular set of curators or a club, they started responding more to their imagination because they knew they had a place where they could do it. It changed the entire consciousness of a community. We'll talk more about that later. So we have 5 of these galas, but guess what? We change shows every month. We're booked 3.5, 4 years in advance now. So this is a problem and a challenge for us because there's a certain level of immediacy. So when Darryl was in town, we do preserve a gallery that we don't book. So if the community wants to get together and express itself around something that's going on in the community in that format, or if someone like Darryl comes to town and we need a space for him, we can do it so we don't program it. But this 3.5, 4 year waiting list is pretty intense. Next. Live art. So our biggest venue is about 200 people, thin people. It's not a big space, right? We also show artwork in there, and we have a black box theater. We have the psychic reading room, which is a little room, a little more hidden away. We kept it funky. We really didn't fix it up too much. People love it, right? It's kind of lofty. It still feels like the old illegal AS220. We still have that sort of in the mix. And when I show you the numbers, the amount of performances stuff, I'm glad you see it. Next. Every kind of genre in those performance spaces, by the way, imagine. From hip hop to jazz, but it has to be original material. We do not pay BMI, ASCAP, or CSAC because that money doesn't really get redirected to the artist in the way that we think it should be. They've tried to sue us, well, threatened, didn't try. They threatened to sue us a million times. We told them to take a walk. It's only an original club. It's been a very intense conversation. We have a dance studio that has outside vendors that come in and teach classes. We have yoga classes in the afternoon. Business people come. Hip hop, dance, ballet, everything you can imagine. Next. Our AS220 youth. I had that poster up advertising, announcing a panel that's coming up in the next week or so. Our youth work for a year on a theme that they pick, and then they do the research and they unmask a lot of this stuff, and then they put a mixed media performance together, speaking to their knowledge. That panel is part of the prep for them to do their final product. Our kids are, if you have any connection with the Department of Children, Youth and Families, or you come from juvenile detention, you automatically get on a youth program. It's free, and some of the kids actually get paid to be there. So what happened was about 16, 17 years ago, the Department of Children, Youth and Families, who runs the juvenile detention facility, came to me and said, there's a federal grant to incorporate more arts in the juvenile detention facility, but we need a community partner. We didn't get the grant, but I went out there and fell in love with these kids and decided, based on our mission statement, other limitations, we had a whole cache of young people who were there primarily for lack of opportunity. And anybody that thinks different, talk to me later. In the 5 years that I taught in the juvenile prison, if I met 5 pathological criminals, that's about as much as I could count. They're kids. I got a 17-year-old gangbanger and he wants to draw SpongeBob. With the pants down a little bit and the hat tip, but whatever, right? So we serve about 500 kids. You'll see that later. Every year they get access to our stage, they get access to our industries and maker labs and all of that kind of stuff, and it's just amazing, amazing, amazing program. They have a recording studio, a dark room, a visual arts room. We do clothing and fabric design with them, and they own the space. You know, when you go up there, you're visiting. They're not visiting, they own it. Next. And we have our industries, our print shop, media labs, and fabrication lab. We were very early in on this whole makerspace phenomenon. We had a hackerspace, a little office in our building when we first became aware of that. You know, I think if you're open enough and you expand your community enough, there's always a few nerds. And they're going to keep you on top of technology, and they're going to push the envelope. And it was those same artist nerds that drove me 20 miles out of the city to look at a computer to show me this amazing new thing called the internet. And I remember standing in front of the internet like, give me a chair. What are you talking about? This can't possibly be real. This is a revolution. let me down. It's let me down a little bit, I gotta say, as amazing as it is, right? And a print shop, the Media Arts Lab, we teach all kinds of different applications, very affordably. You can go to our website. And our fabrication lab, we became one of the first real truly equipped fabrication labs in the country. It's a small space compared to some that are being built now. And there's multiple ways that you can access it. So you can be a key member, you can take one-off classes, and we try to make these things accessible. And by the way, there's two obstacles to access, and I challenge you to tell me it's different. One is perception. How comfortable I am there, do I belong there, are there any people there that look like me? That's access. And money. Right? Those are the two challenges that we face when we're building, right? Next, and by the way, there's a high-end user in our Fab Lab, and it's called the Fab Academy. That's a 5-month program. People from all over the world come to our lab to study. They study with our instructors, and they study with Neil Gershenfeld out of MIT. MIT was really one of the perpetuators and the people that pushed this whole idea of Fab Labs, and they have a network, and they teach a class. And it's pretty remarkable. This idea of desktop fabrication tools, it's common. We all have seen a 3D printer now, so we get it. But we were very, very early in on this network, and we're connected globally. So we can connect with Fab Labs in real time in our lab, and they're all co-taught by Neil once a week. But that's a tuition base, it's higher end. You need some programming language to get in it and all that kind of stuff. And then food and bar. So we have our own restaurant and bar. And on one side is a performance space, on the other side is a black box. This, by the way, is that same building that had all the prostitution and drug trading. Right? Our original building. Okay? And we look at food and drink. And you know, we talk about mission, values, policy, practices, all of these kinds of things, and we all do this really nice. And by the way, I have an opinion about that too. Could you guess? You know, you can go on a website, read a beautiful mission statement or a nice vision statement. Maybe even some policy is revealed through how you book a show or how you access the space. Then you call the place and the person is curt with you, or you go to the door like a particular museum we went to today, and we walked in the door, and the woman was like, assaulted us. I was like, Janera, really? You know, she said to me, I was afraid to say it. I was like, I'm new in Pittsburgh. Is this really how they treat people? You know, she'll tell you who it was later. But it was unbelievable. I was shocked, right? I'm sure they have a wonderful mission statement. But then when you go to put it into practice, it's bullshit, right? And then what happens to you? You say, this ain't me, right? Really, really important. How you translate that mission, that vision, and those policies into practice, into daily interactions. What does it mean? I was telling these guys at dinner, you can actually fire somebody in a loving way. They're still going to hate you. And they're still going to talk about you. And they're still going to blog about you. 3 or 4 years later, though, they may come around and say, wow, I got treated with a lot of respect in the end. You know? So that's culture, isn't it? Right? That's the kind of conversations that private development and cities and planning departments and all of these people should be having with the existing community and the small businesses and the residents of those communities as they come in and start to bully their way with resources. Right? Next. And of course we use local farmers and we do this and we do that. So we have 3 types of living. We have a communal space above our original building where 12 people live communally, and it's very affordable. That's the cheapest way to live at ASC 20. We have in total 48 live-work studios. Then we have in one of our other buildings, we have small loft apartments, and then we have larger apartments. People actually graduate from one to the other. And again, what you're seeing is mixed use, mixed income development. Right? Next, Jackie Davis. She's an amazing actor and director. Migrated from Boston to live at ASC 20. And then Practice, which is we have a thing called the immersion program where people come into our city and spend 4 days with us. Daryl did it. And we teach them all about our practice. We take them to see other organizations. It's a remarkable thing that's happened in Providence, a remarkable thing. And then some consulting stuff that I've done in other cities. So I've worked in numerous cities all over the country. I've worked in Canada, and I've worked overseas and all kinds of places. It's remarkable for a kid who can't spell to this day, right? 2 honorary doctorate degrees, spoke at the White House, you know? Seriously. Pretty good, right? Yeah, let's hear about that. I'm in shock. You know, I'm standing on it. You know, and that's what we're all capable of. And that's what we're all, you know, we all are born, because it's a survival skill. We're all born creative. We're all born with some level of intuition. We're definitely inquisitive. We learn how to talk, walk, and manipulate our parents before we ever go to grammar school. Every one of us learns that, right? And then we go to school. Gotta fix that. And that's Shayla Avila, who was here last year, and I handed the baton. It was a 5-year mentoring relationship. And they are kind enough to keep me around a bit and use me as counsel and have me doing teaching practice and stuff. Next slide. So what do? What makes us different? The unjuried sense of galleries and performance venues, all ages, all the time. The community of Rhode Island, I've had parents tell me, I mean, we've got wacky shit goes on over there, right? At ASU 20. And I've had parents say, this is the only place I will take my kid downtown. Now, they pay attention to what they're taking them to. They make the decision. They've come to understand that they have to take responsibility because anything can happen at ASU 20, and does. Right? Not some select group determining what's good for who and who's going to be great. Vincent van Gogh sold 1 painting in his lifetime. Try buying one now. Basquiat sold a painting the other day for over $100 million. I still want to meet the guy that paid $19,000 for it. I mean, he's $100 million richer today, minus the cut, right? Original music policy, artist-run organization, industry, blah, 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 food, all this stuff I went through, mixed-use buildings, artist live work, nonprofit commercial. Oh, did I mention equal pay? ASU 20 is an organization that employs about 60 people, half part-time, half full-time, and everybody makes the same wage. From the artistic director to the managing director to the person who leads the performance space. And I remember I was talking in Washington for the DeVos Institute, for their international fellows, culture bearers that are at risk sometimes in their own life, that are producing events and shows in, you know, places like in, you know, Pakistan and places like that, that can be risky, particularly if you're a woman doing the productions, right? And I'm talking to these people, and I remember there's a guy, so I showed it the slide, and the guy from Zimbabwe raises his hand to me and he says, equal pay. That don't work. That don't make no sense. He says, oh shit, how do I do with this? And I thought about it. I'm at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. 2 blocks away, I'm staying in a 5-star hotel, right? Communing with these amazing, amazing people. And I looked at my clock and watched. I said, you know what's happening at ASU 20 right now? The guy's cleaning the performance space. If you don't clean the performance space, I don't get to stand here. Sounds like bullshit, right? I'm incredibly sincere about that. And then also, nobody comes to ASU 20 for the money. We just had for our Black Box Theater, which I didn't really talk about, but our Black Box Theater, our director's moving on of our Black Box Theater and our dance studio, and we put out an application. We had 7 people with doctorate degrees apply for the job for a $38,000 a year job with good health care. Right? They don't come for the money. They come because for some period of time, they want to have this experience of ASU 20, right? Next. And this is some of the yearly activity. Next. So let me take you through some theory. art and culture a means to an end or a means to a means? Our communities are dynamic. If you look at just this community, you know, I was looking at pictures on the board over there, this as a commercial district. This was incredibly features when this phenomenon was happening in Brooklyn. And in the blink of an eye. And the artists were like, well, he's being honest at least, and we'll never have access to this space again in our life, so I'm going to take advantage of it while I can. And before you could turn around, that entire neighborhood went upscale. And those artists are not there anymore. That's a very conscious means to an end. Click. Click. So what is this all about? And means to an end or a means to a means. Wouldn't we want those voices and that brilliance of artists to be able to see value in things that other people don't, like the trash they make into jewelry, or the old offset printing press that they repurpose to make art and propaganda? Right? Don't we want that voice? We're dynamic as communities. You look at those signs over there. How many times has the street changed? How many times have demographics in particular neighborhoods changed? What happens in terms of the economy, in terms of the kinds of changes from agrarian to industrial to now Richard Florida's creative economy and knowledge economy and all these catchphrases, right? It's not a one-time fix. You want to create communities that have these opportunities where community can come together in spaces that don't necessarily have an agenda, except community. Right? Click. And physical space. What are the requirements? Physical space. Let's not bullshit ourselves. You need a place. Physical spaces that are affordable to make things, to learn, to commune, to perform, to present. Right? Physical space is important. Secure physical space that you can evolve and develop, and that space can learn what it needs to be for that community, right? Virtual space. It's not good enough in neighborhoods, especially in neighborhoods that have lacked investment, just to say, well, everybody has community access. They can have access to the internet now. You can go into the library. How do they use it? How do they use it in their small business? How do they use it as an individual artist to promote, market themselves? Artists today are making careers on the internet. That was never possible before, right? So we got to take this idea of technology to a whole nother level if we want to empower our communities and the individuals that live within it. Next, and conceptual space. This is my favorite, right? I told you before that artists started to create differently just because of the existence of AS20, right? You know, Providence, because of the visionary criminal mayor, was the first one to create an art district that had tax incentives. If you live within the district of downtown and you were an artist, you didn't have to pay state income tax. They got to pass through the State House on the sale of your work. And any gallery in the district didn't have to pay sales taxes. That, by the way, is now statewide. Because everybody said, I wanted it in my downtown. I wanted my downtown to the state. The entire state, if you're an artist, you don't have to pay state income tax on sale of your work, and galleries don't have to pay sales tax. And I don't know about that, by the way. Why should they be a privileged class? So, but by the way, any of us that were living in downtown at the time, as artists were living there illegally, there were no galleries. But it got written up in the New York Times. People started to migrate in the city just because the perception out there was that Providence was an artist-friendly town. And it changed the entire dynamic of our community. How do we get a community, not the government, the people there, the small businesses, the people who live there, to change the expectation of themselves, the expectation of their community, right? In spite of the fact that maybe they don't have time to go to a meeting, they feel compelled to show up. They want their vote, right? This isn't just arts. This is the CDC, the Arts, the Small Businessman Association, the guy that fixes bicycles up there. What a treasure. If you haven't been in that shop, walk in there. Right? How do you get the community to say, no, we're not going to wait till it's granted or have it done to us. We're going to make demands. We're going to create an agenda for our community. We're going to create a vision. And we're going to have to ask how all these different elected officials, when they're running for office, are going to play into our platform. This is incredibly difficult work. We can't sugarcoat this. But if someone's got an easier way, tell me at the end of this, I'll incorporate it in my next talk. Next, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Next, conditional and intentional. You know, Bobby Seals used to say, and I've seen it written, and I've actually had a small audience with him a long time ago, and he said the same thing. He said that the Black Panthers were a social historical accident. A bunch of young men that wanted to do something about the things that were wrong in their community, and because of the timing and because of the press, didn't hurt that they were wearing berets and leather jackets and holding a gun in terms of imagery, which, by the way, we lack in this movement right now. We had a lot of imagery in the 60s, and right now, what are the images? You know, we had the pussy hat, the pink pussy hat there, and I said, oh man, maybe we got an image for the new movement. I'm going to paint it in a mural this summer in town. I'm hanging on to that one, right? So that's conditions. There was an environment. There's still maybe some environment of opportunity before the developers suck it all up here, right? And it's usually rough conditions, difficult conditions. AS220 could not happen in downtown Providence today, right? And then there's intentional. There's that guy in Brooklyn who knew exactly how to use artists and was very intentional about it and has made millions upon millions of dollars in the process. How can we flip that intentionality? How can we take a place like Pittsburgh or any of the Rust Belt cities or Detroit? You know, Detroit, all these artists are moving in and they're buying houses and they're making performances happening in galleries in their houses, and then the city doesn't really have the infrastructure to harass people that much, right? As soon as the city infrastructure comes in, then they go say, oh, you're not up to code, you're not this, you're not that, you're not that. Isn't there a better way we can be having a conversation with our municipal leaders and our planning departments and our code enforcers and zoning people? Can't we do this in a partnership? Right? Is that possible? And I just, a week ago, I was talking to somebody in Detroit about this, and they said, oh, they're already coming in and they started to drop the hammer. Not a conversation. You need to comply. Period. End of story. Not that we have micro loans or certain kinds of resources that we can help you get, or cheap money, patient cheap money, right? That we can give to you to help you get to the next stage. That would be intelligent. I'm getting old, I'm getting jaded, I'm getting tired, you know? Next. Bottom up. Next. Top down, right? How can we meet in the middle? That's what I mean by the Detroit thing. All this beautiful stuff bubbles up in the ferment, right? We wrote a thing called the compost theory. We were asked, a bunch of people heard about a thing that I was doing called the stink tank, right? And that was because I had been invited to speak at like the Urban Institute in Washington, D.C., and these places, think tanks, right? Because that's a very progressive liberal think tank, so I felt good there. Although I'd like to go to one of those others. See if I can get away with it, right? I came back, I said, these people are sitting around talking stuff. And I said, we do this all the time in our space. Why don't we create one? But think tank, ugh, stink tank. If it's any good, it's going to get messy. And then we wrote a thing called the compost theory. The compost theory is this, and it's very relevant here in Pittsburgh, right? What is a compost? We take vegetables, the peelings from our stuff, we throw all dirt in there, branches and leaves and trees, and this thing starts to ferment. And then we look outside and there's a tomato plant growing from it, and we didn't even plant a tomato plant. Why? Because the environment is rich and it's supportive. You know, I visited a little place up the street here called Assembly. Small, humble. 8 to 10 kids with soldering irons. Nurturing. Opportunity. I often say when I went out to the juvenile prison, you know, and I realized with the kids out there that if I hand a kid a microphone, that person sees the microphone first and the color of my skin second. That's called opportunity. Race breaks down real quick, race issues, when you present opportunity. Okay, next. I call this scaffolding for success. Those spaces and convening places. Let me say one more thing. We're almost done. Let me say one more thing about spaces and convening places. You know, I remember I was on the college campus picketing. I'm 66 years old, so I was very active in 1968, but I didn't know what I was doing. I was just showing up and learning. I couldn't figure out all this rhetoric and, you know, the mad running dogs that Mao talked about, or what socialism. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? I was like kind of a wise guy, punk kid from an Italian neighborhood wearing a leather jacket, thinking the chicks were going to like me if I was cool, right? Except they were driving by with all the hippies, so I never could figure that out. But I eventually did. You know, and I remember showing up, and Reverend Abernathy did the story to college right after Martin Luther was killed, because he wanted to sort of sober it, the environment, you know, and he was concerned. And he spoke in front of about 80 of us maybe, and at this one school that I was in, and he said, you know, you should think about the churches. Because every Sunday, I know where millions of people in this country convene. That's a power base. That's about space. That's about going to where the people are, where they are assembling. You know, and I don't know about this mayor, and it's not an indictment about your city or the mayor, but, you know, it's good. The mayor says, I invited people, they didn't come. How about you go down into the neighborhood? How about for once in our lives, and I'm talking to the white people here, right? Instead of expecting them to come to your event, people come to your event because you want to diversify. Why don't you go down to their event? And why don't you feel what it's like to be a minority? Where you don't understand all the cultural code, what makes you feel a little awkward. Does that sound familiar? You want to build trust? Right? Next. Yeah, we did that. Next. Oh, then it goes around nice, like a little cheeky animation. Woo! Next. So, from community, and I don't have all the social organizations or the CDCs in here. I'm just talking art and culture. And there's stuff missing. This is what we see. Right? We have all these little pockets of cultural activity. And then what happens here? Foundations and cities and art councils and stuff. They throw some crumbs out there in the middle of this. You know what happens when you put too many rats in a cage and you don't give them enough food? What happens? They eat each other. Right? That's what happens. So people, artists, and cultural organizations that by nature are collaborators are turned into competitors. And at times, resources can starve people right out of business, or lack of access, right? So what would we prefer next? Next. This is what I believe, and I think this is what we've accomplished in Providence. Audience overlap. People, like we're doing, there's a movement for this thing called the Community Safety Act that they're trying to pass in City Hall right now in Providence, Rhode Island, which is a set of expectations in terms of behavior of the police department in the city of Providence. And they're pretty demanding about what's expected from them and making it an ordinance that they have to perform this way. Most of that is being driven by the art and cultural community. Because we have overlapped for a while. And when somebody puts a call out, everybody comes. And they come to AS20 Print Shop, and they print for free Black Lives Matter posters, and we distribute them free. Right? And on and on. I'm done.